Well, welcome back my fellow Hoi4 players to yet again another Fuhrerreich video, and the last one for the submod Imperial nostalgia. And since we already covered the two paths for Britons, we might as well cover the other things that this mod restores or adds. And as any good Hoi4 player, at some point we must restore the mess that was the blob in the middle of Central Europe. Of course, I am referring to Austria-Hungary. So let's bring back those beautiful chins and take revenge on those Germans, Romanians, Serbians, Czechs, Slovakians, Ukrainians, and Poles. Not on the Italians this time, as you will see later down in the video that revenge on the Italians was not possible. But first, I know that No Step Back has just released, but at the time of recording this, I already had this video almost done, so making a new video on the DLC will take time. But just so you know, I will be making videos covering the new DLC, and yeah, that's just to make it clear, this is this campaign and a few other videos that will come out around the same time were recorded before the patch. So just to make this clear. But now, actually, let's get to reforming Austria-Hungary. To reform Austria-Hungary, we must either start as Austria or Hungary, since those were the two key players in all of this mess. But since in this mod Austria is just there to be eaten by Germany, like in vanilla, we shall start as good old Hungary. And being a loser of the Great War has its consequences, and therefore Hungary is a mess, like in most mods actually, but I digress. Not only do we have to deal with a peace treaty that seriously hinders our military capabilities, but also we have to deal with extremists from both sides of the political spectrum that are now revolting. So before we can revive the old empire, we must deal with those issues at hand. And of course, the first thing that happens is the London stock market crash, as always. So not only do we not have the military capabilities and have a lot of revolts, but we also have we don't have an economy anymore. Great. So it was time to patch up the mess that was the economy before anything. But as we were fixing the bloody economy, those pesky Romanians decided to annex Transylvania. And we would fight the Romanians over this issue, but the simple reality does not allow us, as our military is pretty much made up of severely under-equipped divisions, so we'll have to let these things slide for now. On the bright side, we managed to fix the economic situation relatively quickly, and this was looking great until Hoi4 and the socialists decided to start killing each other in the middle of Budapest. I decided that Hoi4 won the encounter, as we will need him for later. This situation opened the government's eyes to the whole situation, and so we decided to invite everyone to Budapest and discuss the matter to resolve it peacefully. But as you can imagine, that did not end peacefully, and I think I actually bugged this event out, as you need the socialist to progress down the focus tree path I actually took, so I just had to use some console commands to fix this. But after fixing that problem, it was time for that conference I was talking about before. On the conference, it was decided to create a left-wing coalition government to fix the issue. And as you can imagine, this pissed off Hoi4 and the right wing, and just a few days later, after the whole thing just happened, they decided to coup the government. No surprises there, to be fair. With Mr. Hoi4 now in charge, the first thing he did was revoke the treaty, so that was nice, and secondly, we could now invite a king. We had a few options to choose from, but I decided to invite the good old Karl von Habsburg, so we could restore the empire of old. And with Karl now in charge, our first move was to secure Austria and reunify Austria-Hungary. And just by using 125 political power, Austria-Hungary was back from the grave, baby! But that was just not enough. And so, just so happened that the Germans were interested in Czechia, so, well, and actually, this time Breslau and Silesia, considering in this mod Zapadoslavia is also a thing, but I digress. So we decided to split Zapadoslavia, with me taking Slovakia should a war happen, and obviously the Germans taking, the Czech Republic and Silesia. So I prepared to reintegrate Slovakia if a war happened, and just as you can imagine, the Zapadoslavians said no to the Germans, so to Slovakia we march. At first, we were doing fine as the Zapadoslavians forgot to put troops on our border, but that success quickly fell apart as they started sending reinforcements. Calling our performance lackluster would be an understatement. So much so that we could only take Slovakia and a few parts of Poland.
A suboptimal performance, admittedly.
Anyway, as Zapadoslavia capitulated, Poland fell a few weeks after them, and so in the peace deal I took Slovakia as promised, and a small piece of land from Poland, while Germany just took the rest. But since I was still hungry, get it? Since we are Austria-Hungary. Yeah, I know, it was a bad joke. Moving on, I decided to actually get Bosnia back from those Serbs, and just as expected, they refused my ultimatum, so to war by Jingo we go. The war was not the greatest, but also not the worst, and it was a slow grind having to push through the terrain in Bosnia, but we were making progress ever so slightly until... Yeah, the Germans demanded the whole of Austria, and with both of my army not being the best and me fighting a war with Serbia, there was no other choice but to give up Austria.
We lost something.
Not to worry, we are still flying half a ship.
So now we were just Hungary claiming to be Austria-Hungary. But nonetheless, we continued our war with Serbia, and after a few offensives in Bosnia, which almost cut half of the Serbian army in half, and after taking the capital, they surrendered and gave me Bosnia. A few weeks after the war, something interesting happened. The UK decided to intervene on France and Italy's behalf against Germany in the Second Great War. With this in mind, I had a great opportunity here to teach those pesky Germans a lesson after taking Austria, but first we still had to deal with the bloody Romanians, so it was finally time to get Transylvania back. Of course, they refused our ultimatum, and so our troops marched across the mountains and pushed into Romania. This time, having stockpiling a lot of equipment since the whole Zapadoslavia affair, I had built proper divisions, and now they actually could start pushing and doing offensives properly. The cherry on top was that Bulgaria joined the fun, but of course those salty Serbians, as always, they decided that one slap in the face was not enough, so they just declared war again. Luckily, I had some troops on the border and continued my offensive into Romania. And just as the Romanian army was collapsing on itself, only then they decided it was, well, the appropriate time to sue for peace, but the time for that was a long time ago, and so they were going to be destroyed. A mere days later, they surrendered. I gave Bulgaria their stuff, and I took the rest of Romania for myself. Now it was time to destroy once and for all those salty Serbians. But before I could do that, Bulgaria pissed out for Macedonia, so I had to invade from my border to continue the war itself. And just as they were going to capitulate, they just quite pissed for some reason. And no, I did not just invade Serbia a second time because of them, just for them to be like, it was a prank, bro. Luckily, there's always an option in case this happens. And just like that, Serbia was no more. At this point, the Germans were stretching their limit, so I just justified it for Austria, and after 15 days, war was declared on the Germans. Germany was already not doing so hot before I intervened, but after this, having to fight France, the UK, Italy, and now Austria-Hungary, aka Hungary, claiming to be Austria-Hungary, yeah, it was safe to say that this was their downfall. We quickly took back Vienna and soon marched into Bohemia as well. Meanwhile, in the east, I designed a fallback line in Slovakia and the parts I took from Poland to hold the Germans there, and it actually worked relatively well. As a result, the Germans had to concentrate part of their army, their already undersupplied army, to guard the border. As such, we took Prague and most of Austria back when we linked up with the French in the west as they broke through the Rhineland. After linking up with the French, they took Berlin, and because I had to take every single tile in Germany before they decided to surrender, and there was not a lot of interesting things happening at this point, let's just fast forward a bit by of course showing the casualties. But finally, the Germans surrendered, and since they had taken vast amounts of land, I had to reorganize Europe, so I'll be back in a moment.
5 minutes later.
And so the map looked like this. The Netherlands were given to the UK, Italy was given Anatolia, Greece took more stuff from Turkey, France took most of Germany, and Sweden. Meanwhile, I took back Austria, Bohemia, Galicia, retook Silesia, released Poland, and gave them Gdansk, and I took Königsberg and Crimea as vacation resorts. Meanwhile, since I did not want to deal with the whole Ukraine, well, the Ukraine that was a mess, considering the Soviets really wanted the land, I decided just to give them that land to the Soviets, and as such, the state of Europe was this. And that was the end of the video, as I really did not want to fight the UK, France, Italy for just Dalmatia and South Tyrol. And for real, who needs South Tyrol and Dalmatia when you can have access to the Black Sea and the Baltics thanks to Königsberg being ours and also Crimea being ours? So I really hope you enjoyed the video. I know this was not as cool as a no step back video showcasing the new DLC and all, but I have a few things to take care of this upcoming week, so that's why I released these videos, since it was all mostly done by the time I actually recording all the whole boys, well, the whole boys overlay and stuff like that. So I really, like I said, I really hope you enjoy the video, and you are dismissed, soldier.